The bear cub sat alone at the edge of the bridge. What it was waiting for broke everyone's heart. The mountain bridge stretched like a narrow ribbon across the gorge, its stone arches trembling slightly under the weight of carts and footsteps. Beneath it, the river thundered, swollen with snowmelt, its roar echoing between cliffs like the voice of something ancient. Mist clung to the rails, and the air was sharp with the cold scent of pine and wet stone. Travelers often hurried across, wary of the drop, eager to reach the safety of the village lights on the far side. But lately, their hurried pace was broken by a sight that left them frozen in place. There, near the middle of the bridge, sat a small bear cub. It was no larger than a shepherd's dog, its fur matted and damp, ears drooping slightly with weariness. The cub did not block the path or growl at those who passed. Instead, it sat quietly at the edge, staring down into the rushing water below, as still as the carved statues in the old monastery ruins. Its stillness was unsettling, more human than animal, as if it were lost in thought, trapped in a silence that words could not break. At first, people believed it was a trick of the mist, a fleeting shadow. But as days turned to weeks, the cub was there again and again, always in the same spot. Merchants crossed themselves and urged their donkeys forward, afraid to linger. Children clung to their parents, whispering questions no one wished to answer. Some muttered that it was an omen, a warning carved into fur and flesh. Others simply looked away, their throats tightening with unease. Yet no matter how the world moved around it, carts rattling, wind howling, rain lashing against the stones, the cub remained. It did not chase food scraps, nor did it venture into the forest. It only stared into the depths of the river, as if searching for something that the current had taken and would never return. To the villagers, it became a haunting part of the bridge, a living shadow whose silence weighed heavier with each passing day. Word of the strange cub spread quickly through the mountain village of Evershade. At the tavern, men spoke of it in hushed tones, their mugs clinking nervously. "It's a sign," one fisherman muttered, shaking his head. "No animal sits like that unless death lingers near." Mothers warned their children not to cross the bridge alone, pulling them closer whenever the path bent toward the gorge. Even the old priest, who had spent his life scoffing at superstition, frowned when he heard the tale. Still, curiosity was stronger than fear for some. Boys dared each other to sneak close, peering through the mist to catch sight of the cub. What they saw silenced their laughter. The animal did not threaten them. It didn't move at all, save for the slow rise and fall of its small chest. Its eyes, dark and unblinking, remained fixed on the river far below. When stones were tossed to test its reaction, the cub barely flinched, as though its mind was tethered elsewhere, deep in the churning waters. Farmers driving carts across the bridge began to notice a pattern. No matter the hour, dawn wrapped in fog, midday glare, or twilight's violet hush, the cub was there. It did not hunt, nor beg, nor wander into the forest. The bridge had become its world, the river its obsession. Rumors grew heavier with each passing day. Some swore the cub was waiting for its mother to return, though no one had seen a larger bear in weeks. Others whispered of spirits, that the animal was a guardian set by the mountain itself. One old woman claimed she'd seen it lift its nose to the wind and moan, a sound so mournful it made her weep. The villagers felt a strange pull between pity and dread. They wanted to know why the cub stayed, yet none dared step closer. The bridge had become a place of unease, its heart marked by the silent figure of grief that no one yet understood. One evening, when the sky was bruised with the colors of dusk and the river below roared with renewed fury from melting snow, a man named Elias lingered by the bridge. He was not like the others who hurried across with quickened steps and eyes averted. A woodsman by trade and a quiet soul by nature, Elias had spent years watching animals in the forest, learning their habits and silences. To him, the cub's stillness was not a threat, it was a cry too soft for most to hear. Elias carried with him a bundle of bread crusts and smoked fish wrapped in cloth. He placed them carefully on the bridge, a few paces from the cub. Then he retreated, sitting on a stone wall to wait. For a long while, nothing happened. The cub did not stir, did not look at him. But as the wind shifted and carried the scent of food, the little bear finally moved. Slowly, cautiously, it shuffled forward, sniffing the air. Its paws were hesitant, its body trembling with hunger. It ate quickly, almost desperately, but when the last bite was gone, it padded back to the very same spot on the edge of the bridge. Its gaze dropped once more into the boiling current below. Elias watched with a heaviness in his chest. The cub was not anchored here by hunger, No, it was something deeper, something far more painful. Night after night, Elias returned. Sometimes he left food, sometimes only his presence. The cub accepted the offerings, but it never sought comfort, never strayed far. It always returned to its post, staring down into the shadows of the river as if waiting for something to rise from its depths. Elias began to understand what the villagers had not dared to imagine. The cub was not lost. It was mourning. Spring storms rolled in from the mountains, bringing with them furious rain and swollen currents. The river beneath the bridge became a beast, thrashing against boulders and tearing trees from their roots as it rushed toward the valley. Villagers watched from a distance, unwilling to cross while the storm raged, but Elias was there, standing with his cloak pulled tight against the wind. The cub, as always, sat in its place, unmoved by the storm's fury, eyes locked on the frothing water below. It was during one of these storms that the truth revealed itself. As the river boiled with uprooted logs and tangled branches, something pale surfaced briefly among the debris, caught for a moment against the rocks beneath the bridge. Elias's heart seized. It was not driftwood. The storm raged on, but when the waters receded 2 days later, the evidence remained. Wedged between jagged stones in the shallows lay the body of a large bear, its once proud frame battered by the current. Though weathered and water-worn, its size and markings left little doubt. This was the cub's mother. The villagers gathered silently at the riverbank, hats in hand, their earlier fears dissolving into sorrow. The cub, too small to understand death's permanence, had been waiting all this time, guarding the very spot where the river had stolen its mother away. Each day, its vigil had been one of loyalty, of hope, and of heartbreak. Whispers spread quickly, it was waiting for her. Mothers pulled their children close, tears slipping down their cheeks as they imagined the loneliness of the tiny creature. The priest, once skeptical, bowed his head and murmured a prayer for both the lost and the living. Elias stood apart, watching the cub pace anxiously as though urging its mother to rise again. The sight carved itself into his soul. The animal had not been an omen, nor a spirit, nor a danger. It was simply a child mourning the only family it had ever known. After the storm revealed the truth, the village could no longer look at the cub with fear. Its vigil was not a threat, but a plea no one could ignore. Mothers who once pulled their children away now wept openly when they saw the little bear still perched at the bridge, its eyes raw with longing. Farmers paused their carts, setting down scraps of fruit or bread along the path. Even the priest, once stern and skeptical, carried a small jar of honey to leave behind. But it was Elias who understood that pity was not enough. The cub could not survive forever on scraps and sorrow. It was weak, its fur dulling, ribs beginning to show. The bridge was no home, and the river no comfort. Something had to be done. Gathering a few trusted villagers, Elias laid out a plan. They would guide the cub away from the bridge, carefully and gently, to the wildlife sanctuary nestled in the next valley. There, among caretakers and other rescued animals, it might heal, not just in body, but in spirit. The first attempt was heartbreaking. When they coaxed the cub with food, it followed for a short distance, only to scramble back toward the bridge, crying in small, sharp whines that carried over the roar of the river. Its claws scratched desperately at the stones, as if to anchor itself to the place where its mother still lingered. Elias knelt low, speaking softly as if the cub could understand. "She's gone, little one. But you are not." His voice trembled, his hand steady as he held out another piece of food. Slowly, with patience and tears unashamed on the villagers' faces, the cub was coaxed again, step by step, away from the bridge. This time, they did not let it turn back. It resisted, whimpering, but the gentle persistence of many hands guided it forward. With every hesitant paw, the villagers felt both sorrow and hope tightening in their throats. They were not taking the cub from its mother, they were leading it toward survival. The sanctuary in the valley welcomed the cub with quiet patience. There were open meadows, gentle streams, and caretakers who understood the language of wounded creatures. At first, the cub paced along the fence, crying into the night, its dark eyes searching for the bridge, the river, the mother it had lost. But over time, the cries softened. It learned to eat without trembling, to play cautiously with other young rescues, and to rest without the constant pull of grief dragging it back to the gorge. News of the cub's story spread beyond Evershade. Travelers carried the tale to neighboring towns, of a bear that had waited faithfully at the edge of a bridge, mourning what the river had stolen. Some listeners wept, others grew quiet, remembering their own losses. For children, it became a lesson told at school, that love does not vanish with death, and that compassion is the bridge between grief and healing. Back in the village, the bridge itself changed. Where once people hurried across in silence, they now stopped to leave small offerings. Wildflowers, little wooden carvings, even children's drawings tucked into the stone cracks. Each spring, villagers tied bright ribbons to the rails, the colors fluttering above the roaring water in memory of the cub's vigil. Elias visited the sanctuary often. Each time he stood by the enclosure, the cub, now stronger, healthier, with a glint of playfulness in its step, would lift its head, sniff the air, and wander closer, as though recognizing the man who had stood with it through the storm of its grief. Elias never knew if the cub remembered him fully, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that it lived, and that love had carried it forward. And so, the cub's story became woven into the village's heart. Not a tale of fear nor of omen, but of loyalty so deep it defied understanding. A small bear on a bridge had taught them all that grief is heavy, but when shared with kindness, it can be carried, and from it, healing can grow. And so, on that lonely bridge above the roaring river, a small cub taught an entire village that love does not end with loss, it only waits to be carried forward. Grief is love with nowhere to go, but with compassion, even the heaviest sorrow can lead to healing.